Hello, world history students. This is a video all about the French Revolution. We're going to be talking about how the Enlightenment changed France. First off, we're going to talk about causes. The main cause of the French Revolution was class inequality. You had a large number of poor people who were not getting their basic needs met, who did not have enough food to eat. There was a famine during this time period. There wasn't enough wheat to make the bread that people needed to eat. Meanwhile, a small number of wealthy people, including the king, were living these lavish, luxurious lifestyles in these huge palaces, eating very fancy food. And whenever you have class inequality like that, it's going to create problems in your society. You're going to have conflict between the poor and the wealthy. And this is going to be spurred on even further. This is going to be made worse by the Enlightenment. We talked about these Enlightenment philosophers like John Locke, who had the idea of natural rights, which is that everybody is born with certain things they are entitled to, like food and medicine and a place to sleep, like the ability to make choices for themselves. These are natural rights that we all have. And then there's Rousseau's idea of the social contract, which is that government exists to help the people, right? That's the only reason why it's there. And if it doesn't do its job, then you should make a new government. So we have these poor people who are saying like, okay, I don't have my natural rights that I should have. And two, the government is not protecting my rights. They're just like doing what they want to do and ignoring the fact that I'm starving. That's going to create an environment that's going to lead to the French Revolution. Another thing that's going to lead to the French Revolution is the fact that about 15 years earlier, there was the American Revolution across the ocean. And the French people are going to see like, oh, the people in the American colonies successfully overthrew the British. That's a thing that you can do. You can actually overthrow your government. Furthermore, the American Revolution was inspired by Enlightenment ideas, and they specifically wrote about those Enlightenment ideas. And then another reason why the American Revolution is important is because France spent a lot of money helping the Americans to get their independence. The French sent soldiers and supplies, and it cost a lot of money. So that meant that France had to raise taxes to pay for that, which meant that all these poor people were getting taxed even more. And this became such a problem for the king, whose name was Louis XVI, that he called a meeting of what is referred to as the Estates General. We talked about this in class. The Estates General is the three different social classes. We got the nobles at the top, the clergy at the top, then the nobles, and then everybody else. So he calls that meeting during July of 1789. That same month, the people are so upset that they have a riot, and they storm a building, a prison called the Bastille, on July 14, 1789. This is French Independence Day. The reason why they went to this prison was because there were a large number of firearms and gunpowder there, and so this mob killed the governor of the Bastille and took all of these weapons. At the meeting of the Estates General, the peasants, the common people, decided to form a new government, and they called it the National Assembly. And this National Assembly wrote a document, like Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen, which is like their Declaration of Independence, which said that they believed in natural rights, and they believed that the government should be doing what people want. And they put all of these Enlightenment ideas into this document. So if that had been where it stopped, it would have been cool. But what happened in actuality was that the National Assembly, certain people in the National Assembly got really paranoid, and they were really afraid that people were going to try to undo the revolution. And they started accusing people of being counter-revolutionaries. We talked about this in class. And this led to what's called the Reign of Terror, a period of about 2 years where 40,000 people were executed on usually very thin evidence. Like there wasn't a whole lot of evidence. And a lot of times you would be accused in the morning of being a traitor to the revolution, and then you'd have your head cut off in the afternoon using this tool here, which we talked about in class, is called a guillotine. This even included the King of France. The King of France was caught trying to leave France. He was trying to go to Austria so he could be with his family, who were also, the monarchy of Austria. And he was caught and brought back to Paris, and he was executed via guillotine. All of the other countries in Europe started to freak out. They were very nervous because they felt like if it could happen in France, it could happen to them. These are absolute monarchs who have control over their people, and they want to keep it that way. And then they see the people of France rioting and killing their king. So they attack France to try to stop the revolution from happening. So France is dealing with its revolution, and it's also dealing with fighting wars against other people. And luckily for them, they had Napoleon, who was a general who was really good at winning battles. He was a very smart strategist. I don't know anything about military history, but I know Napoleon won a lot of battles and defeated a lot of other European countries. And this made him so popular that he became the leader of France and named himself emperor. So he basically became the new king of France. So they started off being like, we don't want to have a king anymore. We want to have a democracy. And then they go, as soon as Napoleon starts winning battles, they're like, yay, Napoleon, you're the emperor now. We're going to skip over. I'm not going to go deep on Napoleon. There's a lot we could say. We're going to do that in class. I will just say that Napoleon and the French Revolution both contributed to something called nationalism, which is sort of like patriotism. It's like pride in your country. And before this time period, most people didn't have a lot of nationalistic feelings. Most people who lived in France didn't even really think of themselves as being French. But the French Revolution and the rise of Napoleon contributed to nationalism in France and also nationalism in other places. And then after Napoleon was defeated eventually, another effect of the French Revolution was that all the leaders of all the different European countries came together at a big meeting called the Congress of Vienna, where they redrew the lines of Europe and tried to reestablish order. And we're going to talk about this in more detail in another unit, but I just want to set up for you the fact that nationalism and the Congress of Vienna were both effects of the French Revolution. The French Revolution really challenged the status quo, the way things were in Europe. It really shook things up and made kings and queens realize that they couldn't go on mistreating poor people and getting away with it. They were going to have to come up with some other way to make the people feel heard. Okay, how did the Enlightenment change France? You need to answer now in 3 to 4 complete sentences. Make sure they're nice and detailed and they use information from the notes. Thanks, and I'll talk to you next time.